Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their career so they can share them with us and we can learn from them as well. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is Julian Reading. He's the owner of Sales Journey UK, providing sales, leadership, and business consultation, coaching, and training. So, Julian, thanks for being on the show. And I want to start off with the question I always start off with everyone, which is this. If you were somehow able to go back in time when you started your very first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Well, Jason, first of all, thank you so much for the invite. It's an absolute honor to be here, and I really appreciate this. Now, this is a question I get asked a lot, and the advice I would give anyone is that you have to be the best salesperson in your business. A lot of my background is in technology and tech founders. There's this belief that a product sells. It doesn't. We don't buy on product. We buy on emotion. So you've got to be the best salesperson. And I'm going to tack on a little ride with that is that it's really important to understand the person and understand the difference between rational and emotional metrics when a customer is buying. Because here's the big thing. You're selling a decision, not a product.
Hmm.
How's that for a quick answer? What do you think?
No, it's great. It's great. It's great. Talk a little bit more about that. What's the difference between those things? Because this is something that I see well-established businesses struggle with,
Yeah.
new businesses struggle with. And I know you work with teams as well. And so it's an interesting one because oftentimes when a founder starts a business, they do all the sales and then it grows and they're not the one. And so they outsource the sales, so to speak, to their sales team. And sometimes that gets lost in translation. And so, yeah, dive into a little bit more about that.
Yeah, but typically because that's the point of growth that needs to happen. A new product will
Mm,
have the initial momentum, and I've worked in startups and in mine myself, but then it stops buying at that stage, and you have to be the best salesperson. So you have to understand more of the why around how someone is buying, and you buy a decision. Sorry, that's what you're selling is a decision because that's what you want a customer to make. I choose you, and there's going to be a number of reasons behind it, but the key driver is always emotion because we all see the world through different perception and perspective, our own perception of value. So one of the things I do, Jason, I ask this. I'll sit with you and you're a tech leader. And I'll ask a lot of questions about your business because my job is to understand you first and foremost. But I say this, I say, so I'm fascinated, Jason, by what you do here. Tell me about your last successful project. So
mm,
the word success is immediately obviously associated. So I'm positioning what is a trait transfer of like you've been successful. And there's actually a scientific process behind that. That word releases something called oxytocin in your brain and your talk. And people tell you what their perception of success is. So all you look to do is then build your narration around your product based on what their emotive perception of success is. It's
mm.
different for everyone you talk to because we all do different jobs.
Yeah.
And typically in the software world, you're selling to business technology and operations as well. So I always do a narration around understanding the person's perception of value, and I just marry my pitch back into it. Because here's the thing, Hollywood got it right. 80% of movies are all prequels, sequels, and remakes. If you saw Top Gun Maverick, did you think Tom Cruise was going to die in 5 minutes, or did you kind of know what happened? Because
Mm.
we like, and I talk about the sixth spectrum of human needs, we love certainty. But
Yeah.
here's the challenge. I've got to create uncertainty. So I create
Yeah.
uncertainty through great question and disruption, then create certainty by mapping to the person's perception of value. Does that make sense, mate?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love this stuff. Um, I don't claim to be a sales trainer or expert, but I've been studying it for so long because I was so bad at it to start off with. And I love this topic so much. When you talk about those the sales side of things, but also within your overall business, it may not be particularly sales related, but I'm curious to hear your answer on this. What's the biggest challenge that you faced in your business so far? And what was the lesson that you learned from that?
Well, the biggest challenge was actually getting recognition because I'm up against the likes of Richardson and Miller Hyman and people like that who have been established
Mhm.
for years. And I'm just some guy on the end of a phone saying, "Hey, have you got a problem with sales?" Actually, I don't say that. Quick thing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a quick pitch, and this is great for your audience. I say, so if I'm phoning you, I go, "Jason, hey, this is Julian from Sales Journey." Now, this is a cold call, but I know full well that you've got the best sales team ever. You'll hit your targets. There's no slippage, and your average transaction value is going through the roof. Am I right? And it's funny how many people smile and laughed at that, and then go, and you get a little pitch. So I think it's important
Yeah,
just
yeah.
on that entrance piece on there. Sorry, I slightly lost my track. What was this?
No, 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 no. That was brilliant. We can come back to that in a second. But what's the biggest challenge that you've faced so far in your business? What's the lesson you've learned from that?
Yeah, so that's what I was getting. Is really getting that traction initially,
Yeah.
and you know, this for me it was the facing of what I had to do and realizing that just because I'd sold so much in my career, I'm none. There was almost a paradigm shift in terms of what people saw me as and what they expected from me because I'm there all of a sudden trying to recommend. And it's actually balancing, taking away the political side of it, which is a lot of what people have to do in business is manage politics. You've never set up a
Mm,
company with politics, but they're there everywhere. And actually being that you can create a narrative or be able to communicate to leaders what's really going on with their business without criticizing them. That was a big challenge. But the biggest one was accepting there's a lot of failure at the start. You can't be scared of
mm,
failure. I'm
yeah.
6,842 cold calls in 16 weeks. I bench and measure everything because it's great for saying. And for Oracle, it took me 102 cold calls to get in before I managed to find a way into them. So you've got to have tenacity. You cannot be scared of failure. You've got to embrace failure because that's the
Mm,
hardest thing is saying, do you know what? I'm going to lose more than I'm going to win. And if you
yeah.
don't, you're not working hard enough. You have to work long hours. And there's a little story I'll tell. It's amazing how many people said to me, Julian, you work too hard, do crazy hours, you fly around the world. What, you know, you're doing this, you're doing this. And they say that, yeah, I'm lucky for everything I've got.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Yeah.
there's a contradiction between that because it is really hard. Setting up your own business is hard. Going out there and doing everything yourself, knowing you're going to be rejected, knowing that you've got to prove value every single day.
Yeah.
That for me was the biggest challenge that I really wasn't ready for until I set up my own business.
Yeah, yeah, and it's different, isn't it, when you have your own business? It's when you're employed by someone, because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well and business owners, and it's always really interesting because when one of the things I hear back, particularly from new business owners, is like, why is it so hard? Like I used to do this all the time when I was employed, but I can't seem to do the same things being self-employed. And it's this weird mindset shift where it's almost like when you're working for someone else, the responsibility of the business succeeding or failing isn't really on you. It's like, okay, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, all of a sudden it's like, why aren't I doing the sales calls I did when I was employed, but you can't do it when you're employed because all of a sudden the stress and the pressure and everything rides on that. It's a really interesting concept, I think, psychologically. And I know you love the psychology side of it, but it's fascinating.
But it's a behavioral concept because the moment you take someone out, all of a sudden they've lost the big company thing on their back. Oh, I'm Oracle. And you have
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
here's the thing, people buy confidence.
yeah,
I take that same confidence in and I talk to, I work, I do a lot of free of charge work because I love what I do with people that are starting off companies because it's hard. And, and,
mm,
and and you need the thing that they miss is you need to create a revenue engine. You have to have the structure, format, and you've got to run
yeah, yeah.
sales as a disciplined process. But you need to carry that attitude. And I'll tell you a super quick story. I was bidding for a big software contract, so a training contract, and I flew out to New York and I was up against one of the very, very big training companies, the second biggest in the world. I'm not going to say who they are, but any research will tell you who they are. And I'm one person, and I'm sat in my world headquarters, Jason, here in my garden on the south of England in my log cabin where I plot world domination. And I'm up
Yeah.
against, a multi hundreds of £1 million training company. And I'm bidding for this global training contract with a big software company. And I'm sat outside because I always get there early, and I hear the guy from the other company pitch to the C-suite that I'm going to pitch to. And he's on Teams, by the way, and he lives in Queens, and I've flown over. So I think I've won that one initially. Anyway, so I heard him pack up, and the CEO called me in, and there's the group around there. And I took my laptop in and I put it down, and I said, "You can plug in there."
Cool. So, Julian, carry on because you had a quick power cut there. But what we were saying, you were getting ready to plug in your laptop, and what happened?
Yeah, sorry, that's why I believe we didn't go to the moon, because I can't even do that. No, so he said, plug in the laptop. And I went to plug it in and I put the laptop down. And I said, look, before I start, I'm one person in a company that I'm passionate about, and I believe I can change your business. I know I can change the behaviors of the salespeople, but you're talking to XYZ company. Why am I here? And they all leant back like that. And the CEO looked at the two people there, and they looked at each other. They spent 10 minutes then pitching why they wanted to talk to me. And at the end of the meeting, the CEO shook my hand. He said, "I've got to tell you, you've got the deal." He said, "'Cause I want all my salespeople selling like you, because we prepped for half an hour all the questions we were going to ask you about why we should use you over someone else." So it's a bit of a silly story, but what it was, I knew I didn't have a chance competing against them. So accept your position, accept the reality. But here is what I knew. My competition wasn't that big company. It was that person selling. So this
Mhm.
was my mindset. Massive piece of advice to anyone starting up a company. You compete against other salespeople, not their company. So forget about your legacy of your company, because you've got people who win and lose in a big company as well. I'm going to win in my company, and I'm going to outsell and outposition the person who I'm competing against. Forget about who you're with. Have passion about your
Yeah.
product, passion for your customer, but passionate about winning and beating the other salesperson.
Yeah. And one of the things, Julian, I'm picking up from you as you're doing this, even when you talked about when you were doing the cold calling into stuff, is it just sounds like you have fun,
Yeah.
and you're not, hey, how is your sales training going? You just have fun. You find unique ways to communicate, and you're serious, but you don't take yourself too serious because it's the fun bit of it. And I think that's a really key aspect that a lot of people struggle with because they think, okay, I've got to, nothing wrong with grinding. You talked about, what you're doing, and yeah, you got to put the work and effort into it, but have fun doing it. And it totally changes the entire aspect of what you do in business when you just have fun, enjoy talking to people, build relationships, and that you haven't specifically said that, but I feel it in the undertone of everything you're communicating.
100%. I mean, I have the most fortunate, wonderful life, and I love every day. I get up
Mm.
at 5 a.m. I've got a big gym I've got literally got a commercial gym in my garden back here. It's a building, and I bought all second-hand equipment and I renovated it because I love renovating and rebuilding stuff. But I'm so fortunate what I've got. So fortunate. And I love, here's the thing, and I always say the difference between arrogance and confidence is arrogance is telling someone, confidence is believing it. I believe every time I pick up the phone, I'm going to help you. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you something that's going to provide insights. I do little videos on LinkedIn every day, just for a little snippet of training, just because I want to help people. I love the outreach. I've got in here, I've got a wall of millionaires that I've built, and I love that. I take great joy in helping other people, and we all should. It's
Yeah.
for me, that's what feeds me. And when I'm doing any of my seminars, people say, "Where'd you get your energy from?" I said, "Well, why haven't you got it?" This is no one says go back and live a different life. I'm 55. I can bench 200 kilos at 55, and I do have a video to show you if you don't believe me. But I've got my four dogs, I've got my family, I've got everything that I could ever want in life, and I love every day. So every single person who's going to set up a company, love what you do, have passion
Mm.
for what you do, and people buy passion. They don't buy over exuberance, but they buy, I'm passionate about it. I'm interested in you, and I'm going to have a fun conversation. In just a few minutes' time now, I'm talking to someone about a kickoff, and the reason he's booking me is because he's seen one of my videos of me just talking. But this
Yeah.
is me constantly, and mate, I can tell you love what you do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
Don't I don't work. I've got a passion. How amazing is that?
Yeah. Yeah. It is amazing. It is amazing. Well, Julian, for people that are wanting to learn more about you and get in touch with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Well, to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn a lot. I love LinkedIn. So connect with me on there, or Julian.Reading, it's Reading at salesjourney.co.uk. Anyone that has any struggles with selling, or just answers questions, or just want to talk about sales, because I talk about sales to a lot of people. It's my passion. And here's the last thing I say: I want to make sales a practice. My son is doing business psychology and he got this presentation of a company and it didn't include sales. And I think that's the perception that sales is almost an ugly word, the sleazy salesperson. No, what we do is hard. But done correctly, we provide value to ourselves because we grow our business, but better, we do wonderful things for our customers. So always reach out for me for a conversation. You might have guessed I love talking, but any problems, I love talking them through. I don't know anything. I've just got different life experience. You combine experience, so you get answers.
Love it. I love it. Well, I definitely recommend everyone checking out Julian. I
Oh,
like,
can I pitch something? Would you mind?
yeah, go for it.
My books, they're on
Yeah.
Lulu. So this is my latest one, Selling with Psychology. And all the profits go to my children's hospice, which specializes in end of life care for 6 months to 16 years. That's why I haven't got any problem. I've only got opportunities. My book here, Selling with Psychology, I break down how the brain makes a decision. I've got others as well, but more selling that's going to give you an unbelievable structure for running your business and winning key deals. So please check me out on Lulu. If you type in Lulu, Lulu, Psychology of Selling, Julian Reading, or sorry, Selling with Psychology, you'll pick up my book. Please order it because hopefully it's only 100 pages. So like you, I know that we've only got a short attention span, but it will prove a lot of value because I break down how the brain makes a decision in English, not in a foreign language, and it will change how you sell and the conversations you have forever.
That's amazing. Well, I was just going to say, like, before you said all that, guys, be a student of selling. It's not a bad thing. It's not a four-letter word. It's actually amazing when you do it right. So definitely check out Julian's books because I always try to just learn from every source when it comes to human psychology, which at the end of the day is exactly what selling is. So thank you, Julian, so much for being on the show today. Absolute pleasure having you on. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods everyone hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.